We are now joined via Zoom by Lucky Ntimane, who's the convener of the National Liquor Traders Council, for more reaction then on this story. A very good evening to you, sir. Thank you so very much for availing yourself to SABC News.
Thank you so much, Flo. Always a pleasure talking to you, and good evening to SABC News viewers at home.
All right. Well, what's your view on this legislation that bars the sale of alcohol after midnight in Limpopo?
At a first instance, it seems like an economic suicide for the Limpopo province. But also, if you look at the reasons being advanced for curtailing the 2 hours trading for all consumption, it doesn't really seek to inspire confidence in terms of reviving a sector that was most affected during COVID-19.
Yeah.
But we also understand that, more hours have been now allocated to off-premise, which we feel is a step in the right direction because we are now opening up the economy. But why then punish the liquor traders who operate the small black-owned businesses, taverns in the township space, over justifying a reason that this will help to fight crime? It doesn't make sense. And our issues that we've raised in a letter that was sent to the Premier on the 15th of March 2023 were twofold. Number one, the trading hours. Number two, the increase in the license renewal fees. How do you move from 100 Rand to 750 overnight without a valid reason to do so? So those are the issues that we've raised, but we have spoken to the MEC this morning via phone call, and we have now confirmed the meeting in Polokwane on Monday at 12 o'clock to try and answer some of these issues. But also, I hold a mandate from our constituency that we are going to file an urgent direct court application to stop this act from being implemented come 1st of August.
All right. So, also two things must be weighed up against each other there. The general safety of people, attempts to prohibit lawlessness, and as we heard in that previous clip, the abuse of alcohol and possibly the loss of life versus what you've now called economic suicide and the province's potential to make money. Are we able to ascertain which holds more weight here? I would think it's obvious that, the loss of life should be prevented at all costs. But would you have a different opinion to that?
We definitely have a different view because, we're on record saying that as liquor traders, we see ourselves as family members of society and communities. So we fully understand the spirit in which this act was promulgated, but we don't understand the letter where you now start to blame liquor traders, but especially taverns who are black-owned businesses, as being behind the spate of crimes that we've seen in the country, but more specifically in this instance in Limpopo. So hence we take exception that you're going to punish us and then take 2 hours, that is taking bread from the mouth of our people, and then think that that is going to fight crime. Let us sit down around the table with civil society and find ways to fight crime together.
But in some instances, the sector hasn't done itself much favors. And I say this because we're back on the Enyobeni case on that particular story. The sector itself hasn't, in some cases, done enough to actually make themselves look good. At some point, you and I were having discussions around the shootings that were happening at taverns, for example, and there clearly wasn't even enough protection for patrons that were there. So one wonders, if the sector itself is taking responsibility and indeed, concerned for the safety and well-being of their patrons, or if at the end of it all, it's about bottom line to them, if it's about just the profits and the money, and maybe this is why this is happening at the end of the day.
I think it's always tempting to amplify, the actions of the rotten apples that we have in our midst. And we have actually accepted that we have rotten apples that seems to amplify the wrong messages of alcohol abuse that you see in our society. And yes, we will take that responsibility. But we're then saying that let's not punish those that are doing well. And it's a majority of them who are selling alcohol in a responsible manner. But why target black-owned township businesses in this manner, where you're saying that removing 2 hours is going to reduce crime? That is not a statistical fact. That is not something that is proven scientifically, that if you reduce 2 hours, you're then going to reduce crime in the province. If you look at all the 9 provinces in the country who have their individual liquor laws, they're all closed at 2 a.m. if you look at the on consumption outlets. So Limpopo is not special. I mean, where do they get this thing that if it was at 12, then all of a sudden things are going to change? So we feel that this is a misguided view in terms of fighting crime. But also the economic development should be concerned about economic prosperity of the province and let those that are responsible for fighting crime do the talking.
Yeah. There was a concern raised in our reporter's clip there. One of the patrons there saying that this also raises concerns about, illegal sales of alcohol that will ultimately happen, as we saw happening during lockdown. Is that something you think, is a legitimate concern and that you also tend to worry about?
Flo, it is a really legitimate concern. So currently, the illicit trade of alcohol in the country amounts to 20.5 billion rand, which is almost 10% of the legal market. And what we saw during lockdown is that these unscrupulous dealers who sell illicit and counterfeit alcohol have now entrenched themselves. They even have a customer base. They now have a well-established route to markets, so they know where to sell their counterfeit alcohol. So we are worried, obviously, that this will then create a head office of illicit in the country, where in Limpopo you close at 12, then these guys are going to come in and cover that market. And we know that shepheens have also mushroomed in this regard during COVID-19. So you can imagine what will happen in Limpopo if now legitimate businesses have to close at 12 o'clock. Someone's going to have to cover that gap, and unfortunately it will be illegal people.
Yeah, you spoke about wanting to meet with certain sectors to iron out issues, but then you also did say that you want to in fact prevent this legislation from moving forward. So you don't actually want to iron out issues. You want to stop this legislation from proceeding. What is that course of action that you're planning to take to do so?
So Flo, if you look at this realistically, if we go and have a conversation with the MEC, obviously we don't expect to see results in 7 days. And in that time, we'll be talking whereas the legislation is being enacted and it's affecting our members. So we need to interdict this whilst we're talking. That is a condition that we're putting on the table, that we cannot talk whilst the legislation is being enacted and affecting our people. So if the MEC, which we believe, he's got a right spirit to have this conversation, we've talked to him and we know that, he means well. So if we seek this conversation and we agree in terms of the way forward, then so be it. But we're not going to be held ransom by a promise of ironing out things and then we sit quietly, whereas this act is going to affect our members. So we are going to interdict next week. We are going to go to the High Court, whereas we reserve a right to have those conversations with the MSC to see what we can do to amend the regulations that will revert to the original times of closing at 2 a.m. and also reverse the license renewal fees back to 100 rand, unless if we can be convinced otherwise, more especially on the license renewal fees. But on the trading hours, we are not moving. We want to close it.
All right, Mr. Lucky Ntimane, always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much for giving us your time here on SABC News. That is the convener of the National Liquor Traders Council there, Lucky Ntimane.